towering buildings and bustling streets, lived a stray dog named Rusty. He wasn't like the other street dogs, timid and fearful. No, Rusty was bold, intelligent, and carried a heart filled with an unshakable sense of duty. Rusty had once belonged to a loving family, but fate had separated them. Yet, instead of giving up, he made the city his home, learning to navigate its alleys and subways with a survivor's instinct. The people who walked past him daily saw him as just another stray, but little did they know, Rusty was about to become a hero. One fateful evening, a fire broke out in a dilapidated apartment complex on the west side of the city. The flames spread rapidly, engulfing the lower floors and trapping residents inside. The air filled with the deafening sound of sirens and desperate cries for help. Firefighters arrived and did everything they could, but time was running out. Rusty, who had been sleeping near a small diner across the street, awoke to the chaos. His ears perked up, his eyes locked onto the burning building. Something deep inside him told him to run toward the danger, not away from it. As the firefighters fought the raging fire, Rusty dashed toward the building. A small girl stood on the second-floor balcony, tears streaming down her soot-covered face. She clutched a stuffed rabbit, her tiny hands shaking. "Someone help her!" a woman screamed from below. Rusty didn't hesitate. He sprinted inside through an open door before anyone could stop him. Smoke filled the air, making it difficult to see, but his keen nose led him up the stairs. He found the girl cowering in a corner, coughing and trembling. He barked to get her attention. "Good boy," she whispered weakly. Rusty nudged her, guiding her toward the stairs, but the fire had spread, blocking their way. Thinking fast, Rusty led her toward a back room where a small window stood open. Down below, the firefighters saw movement. "There's someone up there," one of them shouted. Rusty nudged the girl toward the window, but she hesitated, terrified of the height. The heat from the flames was unbearable. Desperate, Rusty grabbed her stuffed rabbit in his mouth and tossed it out the window. The little girl, afraid to lose her beloved toy, instinctively reached for it and, with one final push from Rusty, climbed out. A firefighter caught her just in time. Cheers erupted from the crowd, but their celebration was short-lived. Rusty was still inside. Minutes passed, and hope started to fade. The flames grew stronger. The structure groaned under the heat. Just as a firefighter prepared to enter, a shadow appeared through the smoke. Rusty, covered in soot, limped toward the exit. The crowd held their breath as he took one final leap out of the building before the structure collapsed behind him. A cheer erupted. People rushed to him, offering water, pats, and grateful words. The little girl, wrapped in a blanket, ran to him, hugging his neck tightly. "You saved me," she sobbed into his fur. News of Rusty's bravery spread across the city. He was no longer just another stray. He was a hero. The fire chief, deeply moved, decided Rusty deserved a home. And so, for the first time in years, Rusty had a warm bed, a loving family, and a little girl who would never let him go again. Rusty had spent his life wandering, searching for a purpose. That night, he found it not just in saving lives, but in finding a home where he truly belonged. Because sometimes the bravest hearts belong to those who have nothing to lose but everything to give. A parrot who could say "I love you," a true bond between human and bird. In a quiet town by the sea, where the waves kissed the shore and the wind carried the scent of salt and adventure, lived an old man named Thomas. He had spent most of his life as a sailor, traveling to distant lands. But now, in his golden years, he lived alone in a small wooden cottage, his only companion being a parrot named Charlie. Charlie wasn't just any parrot. He had been with Thomas for nearly 2 decades, a gift from a fellow sailor during one of his voyages. With emerald green feathers that shimmered under the sunlight and a sharp, intelligent gaze, Charlie had become more than a pet. He was Thomas's family, his confidant, his daily source of joy. Thomas would often sit on his porch, a cup of tea in his wrinkled hands, as Charlie perched on his shoulder. "You're my best friend, Charlie," Thomas would say, his voice thick with affection. In response, Charlie would tilt his head and repeat the words he had learned over the years. But there was one phrase Charlie said that made Thomas's heart swell every time: "I love you." It had started years ago when Thomas, in moments of loneliness, would whisper to Charlie, "I love you, buddy." One day, to his surprise, Charlie echoed those words back. From then on, it became their routine. No matter how rough the day had been, no matter how strong the storm outside, Charlie would always remind Thomas that he was loved. But time is unkind, and age spares no one. As the years went by, Thomas grew frailer, his hands trembling, his walks becoming slower. His once powerful voice became a whisper of what it used to be. Yet through all of it, Charlie remained his unwavering companion. One winter evening, a storm raged outside, the wind howling through the cracks in the wooden cottage. Thomas sat in his favorite chair, a blanket wrapped around him. He reached for Charlie, who hopped onto his lap. Sensing something was wrong, Thomas smiled weakly, stroking the bird's feathers. "I'm tired, Charlie," he murmured. "I think it's time for me to rest." Charlie cocked his head, his sharp eyes studying the man he had loved all his life. And then, in a voice filled with warmth and clarity, he said, "I love you." A tear slipped down Thomas's cheek. He closed his eyes, his heart full, and with one final breath, he whispered back, "I love you too." The next morning, when the storm had passed, a neighbor came to check on Thomas. They found him sitting peacefully in his chair, a gentle smile still on his face. And on his shoulder, Charlie sat, unusually silent, as if he understood that his best friend had taken his final voyage. News of Charlie's loyalty spread throughout the town. Many offered to take him in, but something strange happened. No matter where he was taken, Charlie always found his way back to Thomas's empty cottage, perching on the old chair, waiting. The townsfolk, deeply touched, decided to let him stay. For years, Charlie remained there, keeping watch over the home that had once been filled with laughter and love. And every night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, if one listened closely, they could hear a soft voice echoing through the salty breeze, a whisper of love that transcended even time. "I love you." And perhaps, just perhaps, somewhere beyond the horizon, an old sailor heard those words and smiled, knowing his best friend had never truly left him.